I asked a question before the break, Jack, and I want to get back to it. I want to kind of get your take on where we are in terms of what the world truly believes, and is this all gloom and doom?
Well, no. Gosh, heavens no. And let's get back to the question, Dr. Pat, of let's get right into a variable in all this that is really critical in terms of understanding it all. And this is something called critical mass. And let me just explain what that means. Very often when I talk about these things, like you, when I talk about creating the new world and when I talk about the far out stuff that I talk about, the most common response I get from mainstream people is, no way. You're never going to make this happen. I kind of believe in what you're saying, but the reason it's never going to happen is because of the masses. You're such a small minority. There's only a few of you that see it this way. And, the masses, 99 point whatever of the population, are brainwashed, are dumbed down. They don't care about this stuff. They're addicted to the old paradigm and to, their material stuff and all. They don't care. And as long as the majority doesn't care, there's no way you can pull it off. Well, this is where critical mass enters the picture. What critical mass means is that basically we don't need to be in a majority. And actually, only a very small percentage of us needs to wake up to the truth about how the world really works and wake up to the things we're talking about. Only a real small majority of us need to do that. And we don't know what the number is or any of that kind of stuff in terms of at what point, it'll all happen. But the principle that's at work here is that a very small number of people, a very small percentage of people, let's say 2%, a very small percentage of people who have a connection to their true source of power in terms of their true spiritual connection, have exponentially more impact than much, much larger percentages or numbers of people that don't have that connection. And that's the way the world's always worked. It worked during the American Revolution. In the American Revolution, it was a very, very small group of patriots that made all that thing happen. But look at what happened. Look at what the end result of it was. And the important thing to know about all this is that point of view I just expressed, that no way, because you're such a small minority, that is a very old paradigm way of looking at this thing. It's a very old paradigm way of measuring how things happen. Because when we begin to look at this in a new paradigm way, and when we begin to include this variable called critical mass that I just referred to, all the rules of the game change. This is not a linear paradigm we're dealing with anymore. And critical mass and creating the new paradigm is going to work on the basis of spiritual principles, energetic principles, magical principles, if you will. So we really have to throw away the rules of the old game and forget about that. This isn't a question of, the side with the biggest army and the most money and the biggest bombs is going to win. That's not the way it's going to work. This is going to work on the basis of a whole new set of spiritual, energetic, manifestation-like, magical types of principles, very similar to David slaying Goliath with the tiny stone. All the odds, all the bets were on Goliath that day. And yet look what David did with that tiny stone. And I got news for you. What David did had nothing to do with that stone. It had to do with David's spirit and had to do with David's heart. And those are the variables we're dealing with here, and that's what's going to help us in getting this done.